In October 1834, a furious blaze engulfed the Palace of Westminster. Flames leapt into the evening sky, turning the Thames orange and illuminating astonished onlookers on its banks. By dawn, the heart of Britain's government lay in smoking ruins. Yet from this devastation emerged a vision, plans unfurled for a grand new parliament, and with it a soaring clock tower that would rise above London as a symbol of renewal. In the 1840s, as Victorian London hummed with industry, workers swarmed the construction site at Westminster. The foundation stone was laid in 1843 amid the clink of trowels and the grind of stone. Scaffolds crept upward year by year. The air smelled of wet cement and river mud. The thud of hammers on oak and the scrape of chisels on new-carved limestone echoed over the water. By gaslight, masons and laborers toiled through foggy dawns and dusks, determined to raise the most spectacular clock tower the world had ever seen. By 1846, the tower's masonry was climbing, but one challenge remained: designing the clock itself. A competition was announced, calling on Europe's finest horologists to create a clock of unprecedented accuracy. The Astronomer Royal, Sir George Airy, set strict standards. The great clock must not lose even a second in the course of a day. Years of debate and refinement followed. Precision gears were engineered with meticulous care. Enormous iron hands were cast to withstand wind and weather. Finally, in 1852, clockmaker Edward John Dent was commissioned to build the mechanism to a novel design by Edmund Beckett Denison. By 1854, deep inside the tower's scaffolds, the clock's massive machinery was completed, an intricate ballet of brass wheels, steel pinions, and a 4-meter pendulum ticking in steady rhythm. Even before its bells rang, the great clock of Westminster was a marvel, a mechanical giant poised to set the heartbeat of London's hours. As the tower neared its full height, eventually climbing 316 feet into the sky, attention turned to its voice, the bells. The design called for a mighty hour bell to strike the hours, plus 4-quarter bells to chime the familiar melody that would come to be known as the Westminster chimes. In 1856, at a foundry in the north of England, workers cast an enormous bell weighing over 16 tons. Molten bronze hissed and poured into a giant mold. When it cooled, the bell emerged taller than a person. Londoners eagerly nicknamed it Big Ben, after Sir Benjamin Hall, the portly commissioner of works, a man so large and loud of voice that the great bell seemed a fitting namesake. In reality, the bell's official name was simply the Great Bell of Westminster, but Big Ben stuck fast in the public imagination. That first Big Ben bell never made it to the tower. During testing, its immense voice cracked the bell's rim, ripping a 1.2-meter fracture in the bronze. The sound that had promised to shake London fell silent before it was ever hoisted aloft. Undaunted, engineers went back to the foundry. In April 1858, a new bell was cast at London's Whitechapel Bell Foundry. This second Big Ben was slightly lighter, about 13.7 tons, but still a giant. In a grand spectacle that spring, 16 white horses pulled an enormous carriage through the city streets, conveying the bell to Westminster as crowds lined the route. The bell was slowly winched up into the belfry of the half-finished tower, rising inch by inch with ropes and pulleys. By this time, the clock tower's exterior was nearly complete. Ornate Gothic spires designed by Augustus Pugin crowned its top, and 4 colossal clock dials, 23 feet across, faced the cardinal directions like great all-seeing eyes. Workers installed panels of opal glass in each dial and gilded the iron minute hands until they gleamed like spear points against the London sky. On May 31st, 1859, a deep ticking sound at last began to emanate from within the tower. The great clock started ticking, its pendulum swinging, marking time for the capital. Londoners nearby could hear the faint whir of the escapement and feel the vibration of gears turning behind the clock faces. Then on July 11th, 1859, the new bell, Big Ben, rang out for the first time, its hour strikes resounding across Westminster. At the top of the hour, a cascade of 4-quarter chimes played a gentle melody on the smaller bells. Moments later came Big Ben's voice, a rich, deep E note, booming from the belfry. The bell's peal rolled over the Thames, drowning out street vendors and hansom cabs, making flocks of birds take wing from the nearby trees. London paused to listen. Many must have gazed up at the white clock faces, now stained with coal soot, and felt a swell of civic pride. In that summer of 1859, Big Ben had joined the soundscape of the city, a majestic new presence punctuating each hour, but the triumph was short-lived. Just 2 months later, in September 1859, disaster struck. A dull crack reverberated through the belfry as Big Ben's heavy hammer broke the bell yet again. A jagged fracture snaked up the bell's side, and its glorious voice fell mute. For the next several years, an eerie silence hung over the clock tower at the top of each hour. In Big Ben's stead, the largest quarter bell was pressed into service to chime the hours with a higher-pitched note. Londoners waiting for the familiar deep bongs heard only a modest peal, a placeholder for the absent giant. It was a strange time. The great clock still ticked on accurately. The 4 smaller bells chimed the quarters, but the signature voice of London was missing. Engineers and officials debated how to restore the bell without recasting it completely. At last, in 1863, a solution was implemented. Under the guidance of Sir George Airy, the bell was rotated a quarter turn so that the hammer would strike a different, intact section of metal, and the hammer itself was replaced with a lighter one. On a carefully chosen day, workers climbed into the belfry and gently turned the 13-ton bell using ropes, levers, and brute force, aligning a fresh face to the striker. When all was ready, Londoners heard the grand sound they had been missing. Big Ben's bold chime rang out once more, the bell's tone slightly changed but undiminished in power. The repair left a scar, a narrow crack visible on the bell's surface, but it also gave the bell a unique timbre, a rich warbling quality that added character to each note. From 1863 onward, Big Ben kept the hours reliably, its resolute toll heard in every quarter of the city on the wind. As the decades passed, the clock tower, later to be known as Elizabeth Tower, watched London transform. In the late 19th century, the city grew into the teeming capital of a global empire. Factories and steamboats rumbled in the distance, but above their din, Big Ben's measured bongs echoed at dawn, noon, and midnight. The tower itself, built of sand-colored limestone atop a robust brick shaft, now stood blackened by coal soot and London fog. Its 4 clock faces glowed at night with gaslight behind the glass, casting a reassuring warm halo out into the mist. On foggy evenings, the bell's sound was sometimes muffled to a ghostly boom, but Londoners could still discern it, a familiar friend in the darkness. Victorians set their pocket watches by its accuracy. Big Ben rarely erred by more than a second thanks to constant care and a curious trick of placing pennies on the pendulum to fine-tune its speed. By 1885, people joked that the only time Big Ben failed was when London's thick fog smothered its sound before it reached their ears. Throughout the turn of the 20th century, technological change came to the great clock. Electric light began replacing gas. By 1906, the clock dials were wired with new electric bulbs, shining whiter and farther through the London night. In those same years, an electric motor was installed to help wind the enormous weights that powered the clock mechanism. Yet the fundamental machinery remained as it was in 1859, giant gears and pendulum regulated by Denison's innovative gravity escapement, still ticking away faithfully. The chimes of Big Ben had become the sound of normality in London, and soon they would become the sound of Britain to the world. On a foggy midnight of New Year's Eve 1923, crowds gathered by the Thames to ring in the new year, as they had many times before. But this night was special. A young radio broadcaster from the BBC had set up a microphone near Westminster. At the stroke of midnight, Big Ben's chimes were broadcast live across the nation for the first time. The sonorous notes crackled through thousands of wireless sets from Cornwall to the Highlands, uniting everyone in that brief moment of sound. A daily ritual was born. The BBC would make Big Ben's noontime and New Year chimes a beloved tradition. By 1932, with radio linking the globe, Big Ben's bongs went international, introduced to the world during King George V's Christmas broadcast on the Empire Service, later the World Service. In far-off colonies and dominions, listeners paused to hear the faint echoes of London's great bell, a comforting audio postcard from home. But the peaceful chime of the 1920s and 30s would soon face the darkest of times. 1939, war engulfed Europe once more. As the Second World War erupted, London braced for aerial bombardment. Big Ben, now an icon of British resilience, prepared in its own way. To comply with wartime blackout orders, the clock's dials were darkened from 1939 to 1945. Each sunset, the tower that had glowed proudly over London went pitch black, its 4 great clocks hiding their light to avoid guiding enemy bombers. Yet, even as the Blitz rained fire on the city in 1940, Big Ben's bell continued to strike the hours. In the eerie nights, with searchlights crisscrossing the sky and the drone of enemy aircraft overhead, the bell's deep knell could sometimes be heard between explosions. Its tone was a steady, defiant reminder of normalcy amid chaos. In May 1941, German bombs found their mark on Parliament. The House of Commons chamber was destroyed in a night raid, and the clock tower suffered damage to its roof and dials. Some glass panels in the clock faces shattered. Stone ornamentation was scarred by shrapnel, but the tower stood firm. Big Ben did not falter. The bell kept ringing through the smoke and rubble, rallying Londoners' spirits. Only once during the war did the great clock hesitate. A mechanical glitch stopped it for a mere hours in 1944, but it was quickly restarted. To a battered city, those hourly bongs were the sound of endurance. Finally, on a chilly morning in 1945, the war's end came. With victory declared, Westminster's clock dials were ceremonially relit, their golden glow piercing the darkness as crowds cheered. After 6 years of dimmed light, Big Ben shone out again over London's bruised skyline, its beams and peals welcoming an era of peace. In the optimistic years after World War II, Big Ben remained the stalwart timekeeper of a recovering city. Through the austerity of the 1940s and the boom of the 1950s, the clock kept up its flawless record. Commuters returning to work each morning would glance up for the time. Children on their way to school listened for the 8 o'clock chimes. The tower, cleaned of soot, emerged honey-colored once more against the sky, and a newly rebuilt House of Commons rose at its feet. Rarely did the clock fall silent. One famous exception occurred on New Year's Eve, 1962, when an unusual winter snowstorm swept into London. As midnight approached, heavy snow and ice accumulated inside the clock mechanism. The great pendulum slowed imperceptibly. When the moment came to ring in the new year, Big Ben's bell did not strike on the dot of midnight. It struck 10 minutes late, to the surprise and laughter of revelers. Londoners good-naturedly quipped that even Big Ben was entitled to a brief holiday. Engineers cleared the ice and the clock resumed its perfect rhythm, none the worse for wear. By the 1970s, more than a century after its birth, Big Ben had become virtually synonymous with London itself, a symbol recognized around the world. But time and the elements take their toll on any machine. In August 1976, during the quiet pre-dawn hours, the great clock suffered a dramatic mechanical failure. Metal fatigue in an old pinion triggered a chain reaction. High in the tower, one of the huge clock gears suddenly jammed, and the driving weights began to spin out of control down their shafts. In a matter of seconds, decades of orderly ticking turned into chaos. The clock mechanism exploded with a loud clang of snapping metal, sending broken pieces of Victorian iron flying and abruptly stopping the hands on the clock dials. For the first time in living memory, Big Ben's voice went silent, not by war or maintenance, but by internal heartbreak. London awoke on August 5th to an unsettling quiet. The familiar bongs were missing, the giant hands frozen. It was as if the city's heartbeat had paused. Skilled clockmakers and engineers descended on the tower to assess the damage. The repair work was delicate and extensive, requiring custom-made replacements for 19th century parts. For over 8 months, the bell remained mute. People noted its absence with concern. Many realized how ingrained Big Ben's chime was in the tempo of daily life. At last, in May 1977, as London prepared to celebrate Queen Elizabeth II's Silver Jubilee, the repairs were finished. On the day of the royal celebration, Big Ben sprang back to life, pealing jubilantly in synchrony with the festivities below. The city smiled to hear its old friend again, renewed and accurate to the second. The late 20th century brought further gentle upgrades to Big Ben. In the 1980s and 90s, the tower stonework was cleaned and restored. The clock mechanism received automatic backups and monitoring systems. But the method of keeping the time remained fundamentally unchanged, a timeless blend of Victorian craftsmanship and careful tending. In 2007, the bells were paused for a few weeks of maintenance, and in 2012, the nation paid tribute to the longevity of both its monarch and its clock tower. That year, to mark Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee, Parliament officially renamed the clock tower Elizabeth Tower. The new name honored the long-reigning queen, but to the public, the tower's identity stayed the same. Londoners still affectionately spoke of Big Ben, both the bell and colloquially the tower, as they had for generations. That same year saw the clock's 153rd birthday. As if in acknowledgement of all it had witnessed, the bells rang out in celebratory peals during the Jubilee events, echoing alongside cheering crowds and church bells across the city. In the 21st century, London continued to evolve at a rapid pace. Skyscrapers of glass and steel now pierced the sky to the east, and neon lights bathed the River Thames at night. Through these changes, Big Ben's Victorian clock faces and gilded hands still presided over Westminster, an anchor of continuity. But by 2017, experts warned that the tower and clock were urgently in need of restoration, a monumental conservation project to address cracked stones, leaking ironwork, and worn bearings. And so, in August 2017, after ringing dutifully for over 150 years, Big Ben was silenced for renovation. At noon on August 21, 2017, the bell tolled 12 times, then fell quiet, marking the start of the longest silence in its history since World War I. Scaffolding rose like a skeletal cocoon around the Elizabeth Tower, gradually enclosing its elegant profile. For the next few years, the sight was strange and poignant. The famous tower wrapped in steel poles and canvas, its clocks dark or removed for repair. Londoners and visitors alike felt a hush at Westminster. Instead of bell strikes, there was the clatter of construction, the ping of chisels, the buzz of drills, as craftsmen high in the scaffolds labored to clean stone, repaint iron, and meticulously refurbish the clock mechanism piece by piece. The absence of Big Ben's chime was widely noted. People realized how the sound had threaded through the background of London life. Occasionally, the bell was briefly brought back into service for special national moments, a Remembrance Day here, a New Year's Eve there, but for the most part, an unfamiliar silence hung over Westminster at the top of each hour. Season after season, the restoration went on. By late 2021, the outer scaffolds began to come down, revealing a freshly gilded clock face here, a cleaned stone pinnacle there. Finally, in 2022, the conservation was complete. The Elizabeth Tower re-emerged in pristine detail, its decorative shields repainted in vibrant reds and blues, its stone carvings crisp and new-looking, and its clock faces gleaming with renewed glass and gilding. On Remembrance Sunday 2022, Big Ben's bell tolled officially again, and shortly after the clock resumed its regular service, Londoners gathering by the Palace or tuning in via the BBC heard that familiar deep tone ring out and felt a swell of relief and joy. As the bongs rolled across Westminster once more, it was as if a piece of London's soul had returned. After 5 years of quiet restoration, Big Ben was back, the same noble sound in a changed world. Today, Big Ben continues to watch over a London that would be unrecognizable to the generations that first heard its chime. The city has grown and grown. New buildings scrape the clouds, traffic rumbles in never-ending streams, and millions of people bustle below with smartphones and electric lights where once there were horse-drawn carriages and gas lamps. Yet Big Ben endures, marking each hour reliably as it has since 1859. The morning light still catches on the tower's gilded details just as it did in Victorian times. On a clear evening when the 4 clock faces turn blue at twilight, you can stand on Westminster Bridge and hear the great bell toll, a sound as old as modern London itself. It is a calm, deep knell that seems to say the same thing now as in decades past. Time is passing, and here is its measure. Tourists stop and fall silent, counting the bongs. Locals hurrying to catch a train subconsciously register the time by Big Ben's note. In moments of national celebration, whether New Year's fireworks or solemn remembrance, it is Big Ben's voice that often leads the chorus, ringing out in unity. Through wars and peace, fog and sunshine, silence and restoration, Big Ben has watched London grow. It has seen the city rebuild and reinvent itself countless times, all while keeping the beat of the hours without fail. The stone tower that was born from fire in 1834 now stands as a monument to resilience and continuity. Its clock has ticked through the reign of 6 monarchs, the coming of electricity, the age of radio and television, and the dawn of the digital era. And still, at the top of each hour, its great bell calls out, unchanged in tone. The sound drifts down the Thames, mingling with the modern city's noise yet remaining distinct and timeless. In that calm, reverberating peal lies an assurance that amidst constant change, some things remain steadfast. This is Big Ben, the clock that watched London grow, and that will continue to toll gracefully above the city as new chapters of history unfold below.